noticing, I think, has added a layer of unfortunate extra stress to a time that's already very stressful. It increases our worry and our fear and anxiety, really, if we don't think that we can stay connected to the people that we need most. And that's sort of the paradox of the pandemic, that loneliness is really hard on our well-being, and we can be amidst a lot of people and be totally feeling very lonely. And sometimes we can be completely alone and feel deeply, deeply connected. So that paradox is something that we've been on to for a while. And that's really at the heart of Enneagram Prism Project, that the Enneagram is a way of us sort of reconnecting back to the deepest part of ourself, our essential self, the part that never, ever goes away. And when we forget to do that, and we are all so self-forgetting, what starts to happen is that other things start to show up when we can't, and that's personality. So what I have been noticing, I'm sure everyone else has been noticing, and I for sure feel this most in myself, is that the pandemic brings out the best and the worst in us. It can bring us a lot of newfound resiliency and resources, and it can also just bring out that crappy part that we always tend to see when we're really at our most stressed and strained. So we feel that EPP has an antidote to what is going on, and actually we all have a part of it. That it's the idea that we have everything that we need to deal with what's happening. Because inherently, we really believe that people are whole, and that we have inside of us deep and precious gifts that we were born with, that we're supposed to make manifest in the way that we show up in the world. And it can be hard to access them. So I'm going to just put up a diagram here that we use inside of Enneagram Prism Project, and I actually use with all my clients. And this is a diagram about what we all come with. And whenever we're teaching, this is what we start with, that the essential qualities are the things that we are unable to get away from, although we try. They never fully go away from us, but we can become quite checked out from them. And in the beginning, the way that we come like a little baby with these essential qualities, if somebody is really attentive to who we are and really attuned to that little being that's showing up in front of them, and really does a good job nurturing that little baby, then those qualities have a way of knowing that they're okay to be as they are, and they show up a lot. And if we don't have someone that shows up to us like that and holds us with a lot of presence and a lot of care and a lot of love and a lot of nurture, then what happens is our heart knows that it's not quite safe. We don't feel connected enough to let those things show up, and we don't feel like we can be, we don't have our own autonomy to be who we know we can be. And so we do an intelligent thing. We shut down those qualities, and what sort of manifests instead is a mimic of those essential parts, like a imitation of who we really are, and that's our ego. And so a lot of people, when we teach the Enneagram, we teach about the sort of dysfunctional parts, and it's kind of funny to tell those stories about the other types, but when they're told about us, we tend to cringe. So our philosophy in Enneagram Prism Project is we lean into the part that's right about you. And that's what the Enneagram is for. It's to remind us what's amazing about you. And what I hope you'll be able to take away from today is that we all have all of these essential parts in us. That the Enneagram is in a circle, right? It shows us about wholeness. And there is one really remarkable way in which each one of the types bring this essential quality that they are about more than the other types do. And I just want to go through those briefly, just to sort of get us on the same page and to kind of quiet the clamor of whatever's been churning in you. Type 1s come to teach the rest of us about goodness and about sacredness, about purity. There's a real integrity inside of type 1, and type 1 is the part of us that wants to do what we say we're going to go do, and it's the part of us that wants to be true to ourselves. The serenity prayer, I think, is a type 1 prayer. It's the prayer that says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. And then here's the kicker, the wisdom to tell the difference. And when ones are really connected to themselves, we have an idea a strong sense of what's ours to fix and what's going to take care of itself, that there's a perfection even in the imperfections. Even in this upside down time, there is perfection. There is something much, much bigger than me holding the whole thing. And thank goodness. We have a guide named Scott who's a type 1, and when the facilities were making the call that that we were not allowed to program anymore, Scott said, if it's possible, and I respect the process, if it's possible, you know, I'm willing and I'm available. It's like such dedication in type 1. And there's a 1 in all of us that's right now doing the right thing. And Clay, one of our ambassadors who you'll meet in a second, said something to me yesterday. He said, you know, it's the party that wants to just keep your honor and just be a good person. That's a 5 saying that. So you don't have to be a 1 to have integrity, to have your own goodness, to do what is right to do. That's in everybody. But 1s are the type that if we look at them and we observe them, when they're coming from this present part of themselves, they do that beautifully. And when they don't know how to connect to that, what we see is the imitation. We see ones being judgy and critical and got their finger up and you should be doing this and that's not the right way. And that's not the high side of type 1. So that's a hurting person. And we try to hold the type 1 with the way that that they want to be held with, which is a lack of judgment and allowing them to come back to their best parts. Type 2s are the type that come to teach the rest of us about sweetness and about love. It's the part of us that's really aware of our relatedness. It's the service part of us, the altruism. It's the part of us that steps up for people who don't or who can't or who won't. And type 2 has a heart that goes out to other people. It's the part of us that cares. It's the part of us that gives a rip about what's going on. And 2s really value loving kindness. And they know that that's actually a real value and how the world functions. And it's very beautiful if you pay attention to, just Google some good feeling stories about coronavirus and see what's happening right now. Type 2s are the ones that are out there nurturing other people and making the world work even though it seems so broken right now. This is there's a high part of the heart. It's called the high heart, you know, where there's a generous connection without an agenda. It's not about manipulating anything. When 2s get kind of worried that they're not enough and they start disconnecting from themselves, they start efforting to try to be this. That's not what I'm talking about. If we start to see the sort of, you know, leaning in and helping too much and getting manipulative, that's the ego of type 2, and that's a different thing. That's a cutoff part of ourselves. The essential part of type 2 is about humility and a willingness to reach out without anybody noticing. Is just bringing the best part of me to people's suffering, and actually also being willing to be with other people's suffering without having to fix it, remembering that there's something bigger holding all of us. And type 3 is the part of us that comes to teach the rest of us about value and about preciousness. There's a radiance in type 3. It's the part of us that shows how we function, how we do, what our work is with presence. And it's like the calling of our heart. I think people can forget that 3 is a heart type, but 3s are in the center of the heart triad. And deep down, 3s know that they're here to do and be something valuable. And that essential part of them never ever goes away. No matter what they're doing, is how we be, not what we do. Russ Hudson calls this a love offering. I love that. And it's like, you know, one of our faculty, we were talking about these essential qualities this morning, and Dana said it's like harvesting the genuine good things that can come out of the sewage and find the real value in them. 3s are onto that. They want to tell the truth with a ton of heart. I have a type 3 dad, and we had a tragedy when we were little, and he's the one that kept us going. They have something that 3s can pull from their own source, and they don't stop. There's an efficiency and there's a pragmatism. There's like 3s know how to just do business as usual, but not in that competitive, you know, pushy, look at me kind of way. That's not the high side of 3, that's the ego. So for 3s, they know how to keep going, and there's a lot of integrity there. I have a little type 3 who's a freshman, and he's online, and his classes, they're trying to sort it all out and how to do it. And he said, Mom, I'm gonna use all my 90 minutes and I'm gonna have a real class. That's the 3 that brings hope, that there's something that we can move towards. It's touching. It touches me just to think about how 3s are helping us to know that, and that's in all of us. And type 4s are the type that come to teach us about depth and authenticity, about beauty. And fours know that it's okay actually to withdraw and to stay in the deep part of ourselves and find out what's important to us, and to strip it down and look at it, really look at it. Fours are one of the truth tellers on the Enneagram. They appreciate what is, and they find beauty there with simplicity, not the drama of the quicksand. I'm not talking about, not that moodiness. It's the reality of what is, not the fantasy. And it's the part of us, all of us, that want to figure out what's the point of what's happening right now? Where is the truth in all of it? Why are we experiencing what we're experiencing? And then sitting with it long enough to find the equanimity, to be with the terrifying stuff and also being what's coming out of that, what's also emerging. And fours, really healthy fours, can hold both. And type 5 is the type that comes to us to teach about illumination and clarity, and fives bring knowledge that's not necessarily, the knowing that we all think about. The 5 is the part of us that brings insight into the deeper truths of what is going on, into the rationality, and really, really wanting to know what's true. And sometimes the things that are true are the simplest things. Not, just to quote Russ one more time, as a type 5, I have seen just a couple weeks ago, when all the coronavirus stuff was really hitting hard, Russ had a simple post. He said, kindness helps in times like this. Well, isn't that profound and so true? And there's like not an attachment to this kind of kindness. There's a real generosity, and it's not about like contriving that there's a real wisdom in what we perceive and what we share about what we know, not hoarding our thoughts, but giving them, freely, and really being able to access our hearts as we do that. Type 6 is the type that teaches us about awakeness and commitment and loyalty. Essentially, the 6 has always some sort of connection to this awakeness. They know what is going on, and 6s are prepared because they're paying attention. The high part of 6 knows. It's the part of us that's interested in knowing what's what, another truth teller, because this is how we move into the future. This is how we keep ourselves safe. And right now the 6s are, they're a little bit like, I see what all the rest of you are like, and it in an interesting way, I think, is helping the 6s relax a little, because they've been in this worst case scenario, and that's what the 6s kind of organically can bring. They question things, and they want to know what's what about things, and suddenly it's like everybody else's vigilance is going on, and it allows 6 to just sort of take a breath and recognize that the attention and the vigilance that 6s bring is in a lot of ways what subsidizes the rest of us and our ability to be carefree. Right now we have a advisory board member named Shalini, whose husband Rohit is a type 6, and he's a emergency room doctor, and he's volunteering for extra hours, and he's going on the front lines. We have a lot of gratitude for the people who are courageous like that in their service, in their everyday service. But hear this part: it's not the signing up for everything and doing it till myself is being, I'm dragged into the, I'm burning myself out and running myself into the ground. That's not service, because there's a loyalty that 6s know. Really high side of 6 knows I'm loyal to me first. Because if I'm not loyal to me, I'm like the 2s, right? I just giving myself away. And 1s and 2s and 6s, we can do that. We can forget ourselves. So it's about being loyal and trusting that we're all being supported. Type 7 is the type that comes to teach the rest of us about freedom and positivity and joy. At 7s, there's a real creativity in the moment, and 7s can be, there's a lot of hardship going, a lot of long lines, and 6s are fear types, but they don't look that way. But 6 can always just lob a little levity over the net and keep it a little light. It's the part of us that's oriented to freedom, and we can acknowledge the good. God, do we need the 7s right now? And 7s that have learned to stay, even when it's hard and even when it's difficult, and they're not afraid to be with their own heart, then 7s actually have so much to offer. And I have to just admit my bias for my favorite 7 is my husband, and we've spent a lot of time in prison together, serving and teaching the Enneagram. And one of my favorite memories is being in a prison in Belgium. And the people all around us were learning the Enneagram, and as we do, we're coming back into contact with some of these beautiful parts of ourselves. And you didn't need a translator in that room to know what was going on. He didn't have one. He doesn't speak French, neither do I. I had Viva translating in my ear, but he didn't have that. And there were many moments when I looked around at Rick and he just had tears of joy for the freedom that he was experiencing in that prison. There's a freedom that is wanting to be accessed by all of us. And sevens, if you find a healthy seven, hunker down and just, rub shoulders with them and pick up what they're laying down, as they say in Texas, huh, Clay? Rumi says the wound is the place where the light enters you. Type 8 is a type that teaches us of aliveness and immediacy and strength. Type 8 is the part of us inside of us that is willing to surrender. The part of us that knows that we cannot make reality be what we want it to be. I went and plucked my type 8 son up from college, and he wasn't happy about it, but he was, I would even say, compliant. He wasn't fighting me. He's grateful. Thanks, Mom, for coming to get me. There's an action in surrender. This is the high part of type 8, and it's not the typical one that we see. It's not muscling down and saying, I don't do shame, I don't need anything, and giving away my last light bulb and sitting in the dark. That's the ego. This is a different kind of strength that is about living life on life's terms. As many of our guys, especially heard this from Vic, coming from the inside, this is like living life on life's terms, not my own. And right now we have one of our really precious staff members who's a type 8, and she's in grief. And she said it's the most interesting thing that being with my grief is the very same thing we're trying to teach everybody to be with. There's nothing more alive than being with death. And when 8s can surrender to that, there's a really soft side to their aliveness that matches everything else. Last but not least, type 9 is the type that comes to teach us about belonging and wholeness and unity. And there's a part of us inside of type 9. This is the part of me that is in right action and connected to myself as part of the bigger picture. And noticing that everyone is connected to the bigger picture. And there's a beautiful participation within an awake 9. And it's the part of us that knows that it's okay not to do. If you know 9s can get very, very busy, busier than most in some ways, working out and working and doing all kinds of things, but there's a way of doing that's just kind of numbing out whatever else is coming up. And then there's a way of being present to the thing that I want to do most and not judging myself for not doing other things and just allowing me to be part of the inclusion where everyone gets to do what they want to go do. And not falling into the inertia where I can't keep pace with my own life, being in harmony and this modulation with everybody being included. 9s know this, the high side of 9 does. So take a breath. I hope you noticed yourself in that description of one of those 9 qualities, and hopefully in more than one, because you're in all of them. And right now, the universe is giving us exactly what we need, a shock point. And out of this shock point, something good can emerge. It's already emerging. You're seeing so many different things, and you don't have to have it all figured out. You can just begin where you are. And when you connect with some part of yourself on this call, in this moment, a second ago, or before we end, or at any time, you're always opening to something in you, and that is opening to the same thing in everyone, because that's the way it works.